Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. What I'm doing in this show's series is college planning, how to pay for college, how to plan in advance for college, how to deal with college when your kids are getting close in age, you don't have enough saved, how to navigate the financial aid packages and situations like that. What I do, it's not a core part of my practice, but it is a core component in most families' finances at that stage in life. So I'm trying my best to do some research for you and bring some research out to share as much as I can find and maybe help ease some of the planning process for college financial aid. One of the biggest concerns, so I have a lot of materials and I'll try to run through them and share websites with you, share articles that I've found, give you the sites, give you the sources so you can look them up too, and kind of like we can all work together. But I'd like to help you navigate through some of these issues. So the first source I want to share with you is Forbes magazine, actually on their website, Forbes Personal Finance. So if you go on Forbes.com and then you go on their personal finance, and I printed it here and I'm reading from this today, and as I go through each source, I'll share them with you, what my sources are, so you can look them up and read them in more detail. But this is Forbes Personal Finance, dated January 30th, 2016, and it's called the 2016 Guide to College Financial Aid, the FAFSA, which is FAFSA, and you'll get quite familiar with that, by the way, and CSS profile. And what they're going through here is they're going through, when you deal with financial aid in college, you're dealing with a lot of misinformation and some correct information. The first quote in here on the website says, college age formulas, which are what you do, what you see when you go into the FAFSA, and I'll teach you how to do that actually through this series. But when you go through the FAFSA, they're applying college aid formulas. And financial aid, federal and state financial aid packages are based on these formulas. What are the components to the formulas? Your family income from your prior year's tax return, number of people that you have in your household, your family assets that count, and there are countable assets and non-countable assets. So that's what they mean by formulas. And again, we'll go through all this to help you. But the quote here, or the first quote that it says is, college aid formulas expect parents to contribute up to 47% of their after-tax income to pay for college each year. So they do still expect the families to contribute a lot, up to 47%, even if you have financial aid packages. Now, I'm going to caution you again at the beginning of this show what I cautioned you last week. Be careful of when you hear financial aid, because in this quote, you would think you're expected as a family or parents to pay 47% on average, with the rest coming from financial aid, which is what this quote is implying. The problem is financial aid, by definition, includes loans through the federal government and federally subsidized loans. I don't really know whether I call that financial aid. I call that financial lending. But when I think financial aid, and I think when you think financial aid, you should be thinking, I pay 47%, they pay 53%. Or however you want to break that down, aid is someone else helping you pay the expenses. Loans are you taking on the burden, but you're still paying the expenses? So you may be paying 100% of your college of the costs of college and not realize it. So here you're going through saying, what can we afford? What can we afford? And you forget to realize, wait a minute, that's what can we afford now. The rest we have to pay later. Be very careful about this, folks. That is what caused, single-handedly, in my opinion, what has caused the student debt crisis today is the lack of what I just said. People were not aware. Financial aid was not financial aid. It was financial loans. So many parents and many students were saying, we can't afford to put our kids through college. And then here come these financial aid packages, and they say, we'll take care of $20,000 or $30,000 of it for you. You'll only have to come up with $10,000 or whatever. So parents would say, okay, honey, you could go to school. You could afford to go to school, the school you wanted, and you get through and you're out of school and everybody owes all these loans back. And it's, wait a minute, we couldn't afford to do that then or now, but no one really explained that. So when you hear financial aid, you need to break it out. Grants, scholarships, and loans. Those loans are pay now or pay later. So don't be fooled by those as being a financial aid package, because in my opinion, they're very dangerous to consider college entrance and college admissions based on future loans. If you can't afford to pay them now, you won't be able to afford to pay them later either. That would be my rule of thumb. If you can't afford to pay them now, I don't think I'd take them on. So back to this 47%, and the other area is in these formulas for financial aid. This Forbes article says, again on the website says, parent income is counted 9 times more heavily in college aid formulas than parent assets are. Now what that means is, I make too much to qualify for financial aid, right? And a lot of people tell me that. Or I own too much to qualify for financial aid. And a lot of people tell me that. But here we have some statistics that are showing, or at least this quote out of here saying, parent income is counted 9 times more heavily than parent assets. So I own a house, I own a this, I own a that. And when you get into this, folks, and I won't take time today. In this series I will. When we get to the FAFSA application, you'll begin seeing certain types of assets that are not counted. IRAs, annuities. You'll look at the personal residence. You'll look at other investment assets. You'll look at your income sources, business owners especially. And you'll look at that and you'll say, okay, certain things count more heavily than others. And that's my point here. So when we get to step 1, it's almost always the FAFSA. The deadline for every college year, like if you're looking at what do we do for next year, you look at a June 30th deadline date for filing for financial aid. But the earlier you file, there are federal grants, federal loans, and what happens is state grants and state loans. And then what happens are at the institution, the universities, grants, scholarships, and loans. So you have different levels. Well, they get used up, folks. So people that apply January 1st, they already have everything in good order. They get their applications into the colleges. They get their loan applications in, their FAFSA is in, all their documents are in. They have filed online. They have filed through the schools. They have chosen which schools are their top priorities. They have talked with the financial aid counselors. They've done all their research prior to the beginning date when you could file. They're already done by the opening of filing date, which is normally January 1st, and boom, their applications are filed. Guess who qualifies potentially for more aid than those who filed close to the deadline in May and June? Well, the ones in January. Do you know why? There are only certain amounts available. And when they're used up, they're gone yearly. There are only certain amounts of scholarships available. There are only certain amounts of grant monies available. So when those are used up, Pell Grants, all these grants, the state grants, federal grants, and again, I'm talking at the university level, grants and scholarships, they get used up. First come, first served. So be first ones in. You'll look at college as an airline. When we go on an airplane, the person sitting next to you might have paid only half of what you paid for virtually the same seat. It might be worse than that. You might be in the center seat and they're on the aisle or they're on the window and you paid double. Why? Because you might not have known the system. What's the system? Hey, in airlines, you go and you price a one-way ticket instead of your round trip that routes you through Chicago. You look at a one-way to Chicago and then a one-way from Chicago to Dallas if that's where you were going. And then you look at another one-way back through Washington, Dulles, and a one-way to Pittsburgh to return, and you might find you just saved 30% off your fares. Well, that's just an example of how complex the world of finances is, not just in college financial planning, but in all of financial planning. So to be helping you get the most of all your money, these are the types of strategies that you look into. Well, it's the same for college aid. You look at college aid versus college lending, and you look at early in versus late in, and you just qualify for more aid that potentially that you don't have to pay back versus aid later that is exhausted, so your only resource might be loans that you do have to pay back just by not knowing how to play the game, really. Now, what we do when we get into applying for financial aid, I have some other articles, U.S. News and World Report. Forbes and U.S. News and World Report on the web have great articles for college financial planning. And U.S. News is www.usnews.com/education will get you there. But just do .com, put a search in college or whatever. And they have here an article that I printed from the website. It's dated October 13th, 2015, and it says, paying for college, 3 changes to the FAFSA. So if you see that here online, the FAFSA, 3 changes for college students to understand that are just coming. Number 1, and here's what some of those early entrants have learned. Number 1, older tax data will be accepted. Because, you know, when you get into the FAFSA, that's your application process for college financial aid. You go on to FAFSA, and I'll teach you how. Don't worry about all the details yet. And what happens is, how do you get, when you start on the FAFSA, and it asks for you to enter the information for your prior year's tax return? How do you do that on January 1st? You don't even have your W-2s and 1099s yet, let alone your taxes prepared. You don't get those till the beginning of February or the end of January. So how do all these wizards beat you to the punch and get in already? Well, it's because they know some of these things. They are estimating their income and their expenses that are required for the FAFSA because they know these things that older tax data is accepted. The current FAFSA filing system, it says in this article, requires students and parents to complete the federal form as soon as possible after January 1st. And it says typically before they have filed the previous year's taxes, which aren't due until April, right? A new policy aims to rework that process. And the fresh timeline, it says, will take effect beginning with those who apply for financial aid for the 2017 to 2018 school year. Applicants and their families will be able to start the FAFSA in October of this year, 2016, using the same data they reported on their 2015 tax year. Now you just learned how to be first in line. legitimately first in line. The use of the older data means families can start the process earlier and won't have to rely on estimates. Now, you get through there. The second is this, what's referred to asset protection. And it says in this article, asset protection will plunge. When parents report their financial information on the FAFSA, a portion of their assets, which I just referred to, certain savings and investment funds, are not counted by the federal government toward the amount of money they're expected to contribute toward their child's education. That can mean a higher federal financial aid award than their student would otherwise qualify for. Remember, I said certain things didn't count, the IRAs, annuities, things like that. However, this is a new change. That protected portion will plummet next year, continuing a downward trend. Here's what it says. The sheltered asset amount varies depending on the age and marital status of the student's parents, among other factors. And it goes through the limits here. But it says the next academic year will see their allowance nearly halved to $18,000 from what was $30,000 before that. So this asset protection amount, we won't go into it today, but it is where certain assets are sheltered, they're tightening down on that. So there won't be as much protection on that. And what they're saying is pretty much here, they quoted someone, his name is Kantrowitz. He estimates that every $10,000 decrease in asset protection that counts on the financial aid form cuts a student's financial aid availability or eligibility up to $564. So there are some problems. They're trying to tighten this. And I did see another article, which I did not bring today, which I meant to print and bring. There is a new, brand new from last week, that the government will be sending in the mail. I think it's over 400,000 people that currently are burdened by student loans that may be relieved of some or all of their student loan debt. So I went on to read the article because I thought, wait, who's that help? Of course, we want it to help all of us. It's for the disabled. So eligible disabled people saddled with student loan debt, they are looking to possibly waive or exempt them from part or all of their student loan obligations. So if you are disabled and if you are saddled by onerous student loans, especially federal student loans, call everywhere that you know. But it said that they are notifying by mail everyone who's deemed eligible for this potential, package to eliminate those loans. My concern is if you're moving around and they can't find you. So I want you to make sure you have good forwarding addresses if you're moving, or where the last addresses were when you applied for financial aid, because they might not know how to find you. So I want you to contact your student loan sources wherever you're paying your loans if you're disabled. And I want you to take this step of asking them, hey, I saw on TV and I heard on the radio there's possible relief for someone on disability who's burdened by student loans, that they may actually be waived or exempted out. And I want to know where to inquire more about that to see if I'm eligible, you would ask. So I thought I'd share that with you. Now, another area about this, in financial aid packages, when you apply, like I'm saying, and I'll teach you how over the next couple shows, to apply for financial aid at the universities, picking your universities, how to enter them in, how to do the FAFSA. You have a deadline up until June 30th. So you get your financial aid package and you look at your top 3 colleges or universities and you see package number 1, package number 2, package number 3. So you contact the universities even and you say, what's available for me? What's available for the loans, what's available for the scholarships. Do we qualify for any scholarships? Do you have any private? Can you look this over and see if there's anything more that we can do? Is what you're really doing. And so they look at it if they're not swamped, and they talk to you over the phone. And this is, you could go through your high school counselors too to try to get some help on this, because they may know some people. You get to the universities, you can appeal their financial packages. And that was in a U.S. News article also. This U.S., and I show it to you, you probably can't read it, but these are resources. It's not that we as financial planners know everything. It's that we go out and research everything. And so that's what I'm doing for the sake of this show. I'm researching as much as I can to try to bring to you a better understanding of this college financial aid process than you might otherwise be aware of. So this is usnews.com again, and you could do the search if you want, 5 strategies for appealing a financial aid package. And it goes in to say here, number 1, don't call it a negotiation. So don't call them and say, I want to negotiate the package. So they're trying to have you smooth the people up there at financial aid, that you're not trying to get one over on them. But isn't there anything else that you might be able to do to help us come to your university instead of the other? Because we really would rather have come to you, but it's just off enough that we may not be able to do it. So then you're ready, and you go to the contacting financial aid office, which is number two on their list, and there are needs-based programs. Now, that's the first time I've used that term. Needs-based is different. And most programs for financial aid are needs-based, but not all of them. You look at some, if they want your student, sometimes they don't care how much you make, how much you have. They are going to give that student a scholarship. So, but these needs-based programs, you need to provide documentation and things like that of any financial changes, et cetera. The third point it goes on to say is reach out to the admissions office. Most only go to the financial aid office. But this article goes to point out, get to the admissions office too. Reach out to both of them and get them working on it. And another caveat here is they're saying, don't just look at your first year's financial aid. Most, or many, I should say, colleges bump up the first year's financial aid, and it does not continue through year 2, 3, or 4. So you're trapped because now you're in the university. You thought that financial aid package would continue for all 4 years, and it doesn't. So don't be blindsided. Check that in advance, it goes on to say. And then use a competing offer. I do that when I shop for cars. Do it when you shop for colleges. All right, folks, we're out of time. I have a lot more here to share with you. I have all these kind of resources. I'm going to continue bringing through these shows to help you through the college financial aid and college financial planning and just funding. How do I pay for college quagmire here? But again, we're out of time. We'll be back again next week. I appreciate you tuning in to another edition of All Things Financial.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Inc., member FINRA SIPC, and registered investment advisor. Insurance services offered through Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services Inc., which is not affiliated with SagePoint Financial Inc.